blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, March the 5th, 2026. Your readers today are
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy. And beginning with our front page, U.S. aims to control Iran by sea and skies. Hegseth declares more firepower is on the way. This article is written by a number of USA Today staffers: Michael Loria, Janine Santucci, Sibel Mays Osterman, and Bart Jansen. The Trump administration vowed to use more firepower in the war with Iran after officials said a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship. Reports said that more than 80 people were killed. The United States and Israel will soon control Iranian airspace, and the leader of Iran's military unit that tried to assassinate President Donald Trump has been killed, administration leaders said at a news conference March the 4th, touting American achievements in the war. In a few days, the United States and Israel's war against Iran has seen the region transformed, but American troops in the area remain under attack by Iran and its proxies, and more than 1,000 American citizens are still looking to escape the region as the war expands to neighboring countries, causing unease in financial markets and a surge in oil prices. The United States and Israel launched strikes against Iran on February 28th. Trump confirmed the operation in a national televised address. Iran's counterattacks have led to several U.S. embassies closing in the region, including in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Beirut, and Kuwait. Air Force General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told reporters March the 4th that the military has begun ferrying Americans out of the region when space is available on flights, but encouraged people to register the State Department for assistance. We've also opened up space available seats on C-17s and other airplanes, Kane said. U.S. military officials late on March the 3rd released the names of 4 of 6 American soldiers killed so far in the war with Iran. Captain Cody A. Cork, 35, of Winter Haven, Florida. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Tygens, 42, of Bellevue, Nebraska. Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Amore, 39, of White Bear Lake, Minnesota. And Sergeant Declan J. Cody, 20, of West Des Moines, Iowa. Pentagon officials said they were killed in an unmanned aircraft attack March the 1st on Port Shuaibah, Kuwait. All 4 were with a Des Moines Army Reserve unit. U.S. military authorities are investigating the attack. The death toll in Iran has risen to 1,045 since the war began, according to reports from state media March the 4th. The Iranian Red Crescent Society had placed the death toll at 787, including dozens of schoolgirls and staff at the Sajara Tayyabeh all-girls elementary school. At least 175 people were killed in the strike, Iranian state media said, which has prompted international condemnation. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth told reporters March the 4th that the military is investigating the attack. We, of course, never target civilian targets, he said. At least 80 people were killed when a U.S. submarine torpedoed and sank an Iranian warship off Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's deputy foreign minister told a local TV station. Hegseth said it was the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Hegseth said the leader of Iran's military unit that tried to assassinate Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh, Hegseth said. Kane said the United States has sunk 20 ships in Iran's navy. Hegseth said the sinkings included its most prized ship, named after Qasem Soleimani, a commander in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, who was killed by U.S. bombing in 2020. Last night we sank their prize ship, the Soleimani, Hegseth said. Looks like POTUS got him twice, he added, referring to the President of the United States. Hegseth said the U.S. and Israeli Air Forces have complete control of the skies over Iran, and additional warplanes are arriving to escalate the bombing campaign. They are toast and they know it, he said. Iran will still be able to launch missiles and one-way drones, but with control of the skies, Haig said the Air Forces would use 500 through 1,000 and 2,000 pound precision bombs. Kane said Iran's ballistic missile launchers were down 86% and one-way attack drone attacks have dropped 73% from the opening days of the war. He said the United States had achieved localized air superiority over the southern flank of Iran's coast. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory, he said. Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the Central Command, which is leading the U.S. campaign, provided details late March the 3rd of U.S. troop deployments. Among military, the units in the region are 50,000 soldiers, 200 fighter jets, 2 aircraft carriers, and an undisclosed number of B-1, B-2, and B-52 bombers, Cooper said in a statement. He added that more capabilities are on the way and called the deployment the largest buildup in the Middle East in a generation. The admiral said the military has struck more than 2,000 targets, including sinking the entire Iranian Navy, and has destroyed 17 ships. Cooper has said a force of B-52 bombers had struck ballistic missiles in command and control posts. We're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us, he said. Iran has responded by launching more than 500 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones, though U.S. strikes have severely crippled its ability to attack, the admiral said. Kane said U.S. allies in the Middle East have been shooting down Iran's missiles and drones with precision. Jordanian air defense has intercepted a cluster of one-way attack drones headed to Oman, Kane said. Bahrain's air defense forces shot down a drone heading toward its maritime infrastructure to protect the country's shipping lanes. Saudi Arabia's Patriot missile battery stopped a salvo of ballistic missiles aimed at energy facilities. The United Arab Emirates neutralized multiple drones targeting Abu Dhabi's industrial zone. Qatari fighters shot down 2 Iranian bombers. Together, these nations are helping to defend themselves and protect power as required against the enemy, Kane said.
Stepping away from the war effort for a moment, the new gold rush sweeps across the American West. With prices at record highs, metal is having a moment. A jointly written article by Trevor Hughes and Lauren Billigran of USA Today. Sloshing chilly river water around his black plastic pan, Kevin Single tilted it this way and that, catching the sun, looking for a telltale glint, flecks of gold. Right there, he exclaimed. He's a longtime prospector and guidebook author. We got 2 this time. Record high prices are driving a renewed interest in gold across the U.S. Some families feeling the economic pinch are even selling their jewelry at pawn shops. Others are buying it as a fear-based hedge against inflation. The U.S. government has bought more than $1 billion worth in the past year, and famously gold-loving President Donald Trump has adorned the Oval Office with it. Now, Single likes to go find it himself. On the South Platte River, the gold flakes wash down from the deposits high in the Rocky Mountains, carried down each spring by the rush of melting snow. On a recent day on the river's gravel bank in sight of Denver's skyscrapers, Single found speck after speck of gold, sucking it out of his pan with an eyedropper. Now, each piece was the size of a grain of sand, a lustrous grain of sand that's almost twice as heavy as a similarly sized fleck of lead. Some days he works at his richer claim near a Colorado ski resort, where a hard day of shoveling, sifting, and sluicing gravel can earn him up to $30. It's not like you're going to find a $10,000 nugget. It's the equivalent of picking up dimes off the sidewalk. Eventually, you get enough to pay for lunch, Single said. Over the years, though, Single has collected what now amounts to tens of thousands of dollars worth of gold. He sells some of it to tourists, made some into wedding rings for family members, and with current prices so high, His guidebooks are flying off the shelves, and there's been a surge in interest for the prospecting group he helps run. Every month, hundreds of new faces join his Facebook group. Gold mining, he says, is an addictive hobby, made even more interesting by prices hovering around $5,200 an ounce. A year ago, it was around $3,000, which itself was double the pandemic level of about $1,600 an ounce. There are a lot of people out there whose mom or dad, or grandparents bought 10 ounces of gold 20 years ago. That 10 ounces is now enough to buy a car, Singal said. Based on historic prices, the 10-ounce gold purchase 20 years ago for about $5,500 would be worth more than $50,000 today. So why is the price of gold so high? Now, those prices typically rise when the stock market is lagging, as investors seek stability in a metal that largely sits unused in government vaults. That's all around the world, including Kentucky's Fort Knox. What's different today is that gold is surging at the same time as the stock market is climbing. Trump has pointed to the rising stock market as a reflection of his administration's economic successes. But he's also made gold a symbol of his presidency, figuratively promising a new golden age for the country and literally decorating the White House in golden decor. There are golden urns on the Oval Office fireplace mantel, golden coasters on the coffee table. A new sign announces the Oval Office in gold lettering. There are gold leaf flourishes on the walls and ceilings, golden sconces in the Lincoln bathroom, and renderings show the planned 90,000 square foot ballroom will be decked with gold accents. But while Trump and the federal government are buying gold, the ongoing economic squeeze for many Americans means those who have some are cashing in. Large purchases by governments are typically what drives up the price of gold as they temper inflation. And purchasing records show the U.S. has been buying gold from sources in both Europe and in Utah. In Oklahoma City, Naife Fine Jewelry is seeking people from all walks of life come in with pieces to sell, said George Naife, who owns the business with his wife, jewelry designer Valerie. Some just want to know what their piece may be worth, he said. Others looking to help make ends meet. He has seen customers who inherited jewelry years ago, put it in their safes and forgot about it. Now, all of a sudden, the opportunity is there. They're bringing in the jewelry to sell it. Former investment banker Peter Ricciuti said he understands why Americans who have gold are selling it, given the high prices of groceries, housing, insurance. But he remains mystified, he said, why people buy gold when the economy feels shaky. Ricciuti is now a finance and investing professor at New Orleans Tulane University, and he recently brought a class to a pawn shop to see the gold buying process. Ricciuti said, compared with investing in companies via the stock market, gold typically does not appreciate as fast. The last year, he said, has been an exception. It's all about the insecurity of the global economy, he said. It's a fear factor. Now, Ricciuti said foreign investors have also been buying gold. Internationally, the value of the U.S. dollar has been sliding ever since Trump took office, making gold purchases relatively cheaper for other governments. Ricciuti, who used to run the state of Louisiana's $3 billion investment portfolio, said he remains skeptical that gold is ever a good investment. It's akin to buying Bitcoin. I'd much rather own shares of a good public company, but that just doesn't seem to be the fit. The only thing you can sell people is gold and amazingly rich, risky tech ideas. Out on the Colorado South Platte River, Singal tends to agree. As a former international businessman, he remains a committed amateur gold miner, still standing in waters in his waders in the weak winter sun. He extols the benefits of panning for gold, getting outside, making new friends, experimenting with different kinds of pans and sluice boxes to filter out the unwanted sand and gravel. If he makes a few bucks doing it, all the better. Singles prospecting follows a routine. Dig gravel, sift out the big rocks, dump the remaining gravel through a sluice box to remove lighter sand and small rocks, which filter into a gold pan. Fill that pan with water, and with motions born of thousands of hours of practice, swirl away the sand until all that's left is gold. You've got gold showing in your pan already, he told a guest after a few expert swirls. Look at that. You dug gold. But Singles also cautious. Asking a gold miner if they're hitting a pay streak, that's a good way to get lied to. No one, he said, will cop to hitting it rich, even when the prices are so high. In fact, people are probably even more liable to mislead you. While it does mean you could make more money flipping burgers at Wendy's, it is more lucrative than it used to be, Single said as he crouched on the riverbank, a few tiny gold flecks glinting in his pan. I might do better than break even today.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:16. And returning to our front page, AI for entry-level jobs leaves a toll to pay. Expert, future leaders need fostering and training, from Rachel Barber of USA Today. Just a few years ago, a junior employee in finance was expected to master Excel, learn about the company, and analyze data in response to specific requests. Today, artificial intelligence can handle much of that work, and entry-level hires are increasingly asked to review AI-generated output, make judgment calls, and manage risk, responsibilities that traditionally required years of first-hand experience, according to Peter Watkins, Senior Director of University Programs at the CFA Institute. When you were an apprentice doing something 20 years ago, you needed about 2 or 3 years of work alongside other people, Watkins said. It's almost like we've forgotten that period is needed for someone to be really effective in the next stage in their career. While some companies are just starting to dabble in AI deployment, early adopters have dived in, according to NVIDIA's State of AI in Financial Services 2026 Trends Report. 73% of respondents in leadership roles said AI is important to their company's future success, and 89% of those surveyed said the technology has increased revenue and reduced annual costs. There is tremendous pressure on CEOs often to follow the herd when it comes to, for example, layoffs, which unfortunately the stock market on average tends to reward because Wall Street interprets it as you can do more with less. Whether that's true or not, said Eric Stetler, chief economist at the talent marketplace TopTal. If your competitor is doing it, then you need to show Wall Street and your board, yes, you're doing it as well. But Stetler, a management consultant, has a warning for those business leaders. Don't forget to plan for the future and train the next generation of leaders. It may look better on paper or in the Excel sheet to cut your entry-level hiring and talent development in this transitional moment, but this is a transitional moment, Stetler said. You have a responsibility to foster tomorrow's talent for your organization. AI is not an excuse to hold off on that. You need to be playing the long game. Is AI taking entry-level jobs? Young job seekers are having a hard time getting their foot in the door. Cengage Group survey found 76% of employers reported hiring for fewer or the same number of entry-level roles in 2025, up from 69% in 2024. A Federal Reserve Bank of New York study found 42% of recent college graduates are underemployed, the highest level since 2020. Excuse me, meaning they are working jobs that don't typically require a college degree. As companies contend with economic uncertainty, AI is not the only factor contributing to a low hire environment. Of those, the Cengage Group surveyed 46% said changes due to AI and emerging technologies are contributing to a decline in entry-level hiring. Around half said the current state of the economy and a tight labor market are to blame. Firms possibly are not recruiting as many as they have some years ago, but that's as much about economics as AI, Watkins said. If firms are looking to make resource reductions, AI starts to become a solution for that. Whereas in another economic climate, they'd probably be using it more in terms of innovation and growth. Still, a 2023 Goldman Sachs report estimated AI could expose about 300 million full-time jobs to automation. A World Economic Forum report last year said AI is likely to disrupt as many roles as it creates, with white-collar entry-level jobs particularly vulnerable. If companies intend to replace rather than reshape entry-level work, said Neil Costa, founder and CEO of the recruitment and marketing agency HireClicks, they should remember AI still lacks human experience, judgment, and diversity. There's a big misconception for companies that are maybe thinking they can just throw it over the wall to the machines, Costa said. They may benefit now by saving costs on the human component of their business operations or employee expenses, but I think there's going to be a toll to pay afterward. Watkins said there is a growing concern that some companies are headed toward a diamond-shaped career structure in which there are hardly any workers at the bottom, plenty in the middle, and few at the top. Obviously, that's not sustainable. You're always going to need a pyramid, he said, adding that research analysts will always be needed. Otherwise, no one else will understand what the AI tools are doing. Stetler says companies should view today's landscape as an opportunity to train a new generation that will bring creativity and innovation to their organization over the next few decades, even if some junior employees eventually leave for a different job. They will remember that this is where they learned, and they will become future clients, future partners, future investors, Stetler said. I mean that in a serious, analytical, quantitative way. This is not meant as a feel-good point. Costa added that companies should consider that young people tend to learn new technology more quickly than those who have been in the workforce for decades. That attribute, he said, will likely translate to productivity gains and increased profits over time. It's almost negligent to pass up on that younger talent that is figuring out how to incorporate this incredible productivity tool into their day-to-day lives, Costa said. Why would you pass on that talent? Why would you just take up the short-term gain by dodging some payroll expenses now versus the potential upside on what that could generate for the top line? While recent graduates used to enter the workforce to learn the ropes, they're now being asked to innovate soon after they're hired, according to Watkins. He added that a strong candidate today has a specific experience with a new technology to fill a company's knowledge gap, or is adaptable with good people skills, business sense, and a broad background. Ideally, both. Being able to code no longer makes an applicant stand out. Having a deep understanding of AI might. We have to remember, although the generation going into the workforce at the moment are digital natives, they are not AI natives, Watkins said. They'll tend to say, yes, I can use AI, but they also are looking for firms that supply training in AI and time to learn on the job. For young people who know little about the technology, Costa said, applicants should still expect to have an answer ready when companies ask for an example of a time they used AI in a constructive way. Companies are looking for people who can bridge AI in other areas of the business, according to Stetler. If you're a designer or a finance professional, they're looking for you to have sufficient professional fluency in AI that you can then go in the other direction. Young workers seem to have two paths. The first, run from automation and pursue a job that requires showing up in person doing physical work that AI currently can't replace. The most in-demand jobs in 2025 appear to fall into this category. They include nurses, caretakers, social workers, warehouse associates, and installation technicians, according to a report by Monster.com, an online job search platform. Monster career expert Vicky Salemi said the common denominator across all of them is that they require human judgment, trust, and relationship building. They also cannot be fully automated or offshored. maybe these roles on the front lines aren't appealing to them, or maybe they don't have the credentials right now to pursue them full throttle. But they can keep this list for resiliency in mind as they're reviewing other jobs, Salami said. Let me repeat it. Salemi said. The second, secure an internship that leads to or apply and network their way into an entry-level role that AI is reshaping. Stetler said those who take the second path should remember humans are still better at creativity and judgment than AI. Judgment comes from experience. So young young job seekers should focus on their creativity. The difference between an entry-level job today and when I was starting out is that now you will be thinking on the systems level from day one, Stetler said.
Back to the national news. North Carolina, Texas primaries are offering midterm clues. Upsets and uncertainty are coloring the first contents. Philip M. Bailey of USA Today writes, surprises and uncertainty dominated the event after millions of Americans flocked to the polls on March the 3rd, kicking off a high-stakes 2026 midterm election that largely will be a referendum on President Trump's return to power. Voters in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas made their votes heard. But much of the national spotlight shone on the Senate primaries in the Lone Star State, which cost about $110 million combined, breaking campaign spending records. On the Democratic side, Representative Jasmine Crockett and State Representative James Tallarico faced off in a contest that was more about style and perceived electability in November than their modest policy differences. The contest served as a gut check for Democrats on how best to confront Trump and win over swing voters. On the other ballot, longtime GOP Senator John Cornyn faced a major challenge from more right-leaning insurgents. So here are the important takeaways from the March 3rd primaries. First, court orders disrupt Crockett-Tallarico showdown. Roughly 1.4 million voters cast ballots in the Democratic primary between Crockett, known for her viral clapbacks aimed at Republicans, and Tallarico, who ran on a populist message. Tallarico pulled off an upset win against Crockett, according to CNN and Decision Desk HQ. Early results showed him performing very well in Hispanic areas. But the horse race was eclipsed by reports that voters in two major counties, including Crockett's own hometown of Dallas, were being turned away from polling places. Local voters for years had been allowed to cast their ballot any place in the county, but Republicans in Dallas and Williamson counties opted to change the rules for the 26th primary and require that people cast ballots only at their assigned precinct. A judge ordered the voting period to be extended by 2 hours at the urging of both Democratic contenders. But the Texas Supreme Court, at the behest of State Attorney General Ken Paxton, ruled the Dallas County ballots cast after the original close of polls had to be separated from other ballots. Now, it remained unclear when, if at all, the late Dallas votes would be counted, or if they would impact the outcome. A spokesperson for Crockett's campaign told the Associated Press she plans to sue over the alleged disenfranchisement. Next, Cornyn and Paxton are headed for an even nastier runoff. Republicans had their own bitter primary in Texas that put Cornyn's career on the line as he tried mightily to fend off two MAGA-affiliated challengers, Representative Wesley Hunt and the scandal-plagued Paxton. Trump notably took a pass on endorsing anybody. Cornyn, who's 74, was backed by Senate Republican leaders and pummeled both rivals. Paxton is considered a MAGA darling. He has also demonstrated a remarkable ability to survive an onslaught of political scandals, including bribery allegations and marital drama. Now, as polls had projected, Neither Cornyn or Paxton had enough votes to cross the needed 50% threshold to avoid a runoff, meaning their nasty squabble is going to continue until May 26. What happens next is largely going to depend on Trump, who will be lobbied heavily by top Senate leaders and former campaign advisors who are going to argue now is the time Texas is put to bed for the sake of the Senate majority, a GOP operative close to the Cornyn campaign told USA Today.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30.
Continuing, after Representative Dan Crenshaw, Republican from Texas, spoke at the 2020 Republican National Convention, he was thought to be the face of the new conservatives. A veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, he sports a trademark eye patch after being injured in combat, and that brought him national media attention. He's championed causes on the political right, such as prohibiting federal funding for gender-affirming care, while being praised by the National Rifle Association. But Crenshaw's support for Ukraine aid, certifying the 2020 election results, and supplying a bipartisan immigration enforcement deal during the Biden era displeased Trump. He was the only House Republican incumbent in Texas in 2026 who did not have Trump's endorsement. Crenshaw drew multiple primary challengers, including State Rep. Steve Toth, who was backed by Senator Ted Cruz in a just redrawn Houston area district that mostly covered new territory for the four-term incumbent. Toth won, NBC News and the Associated Press reported, by nearly 19 percentage points. Age referendum in a new Texas district. The age of U.S. elected officials was a major sticking point for Democrats in 2024, given questions about then-President Joe Biden, and about 6 out of 10 Americans tell pollsters Trump age is a concern. That generational divide will be one of the main features of the 26 Democratic primaries as a herd of younger candidates look to push the old guard out of office. One of the first races where that issue showed up was a Texas primary battle between Representative Al Green, who's 79, and Representative-elect Christian Menifee, age 37, in the state's newly drawn 18th Congressional, which was crafted as part of Trump's larger redistricting war. With about 70% of the precincts reporting, Menifee led Green, who is known for disrupting the past two State of the Union addresses in protest, by about 4 percentage points. It could signal that voters are ready for a new generation of Democrats to take over. And finally, Senate Democrats are bullish on their chances of retaking the upper chamber of Congress this year, too. But it will require an almost perfect performance in November. The current 53-47 GOP majority requires that they flip not only North Carolina, but Alaska, Maine, and Ohio, while also defending seats in Georgia and Michigan. Now, North Carolina is part of that equation because of its toss-up status. Trump won the swing state by about 3 percentage points in 2024, and it will have an open Senate seat thanks to Republican Thom Tillis foregoing re-election. Democrats successfully recruited former Governor Roy Cooper, a moderate who served 2 terms and coasted to victory on March 3rd. He's going to be facing former Republican National Chair Michael Whatley, a close Trump ally, in what's going to be one of the most critical and likely expensive Senate contests of the year. If Cooper could be elected governor of the state, then maybe he has a chance of being elected to the Senate. This from Linda Ekman, age 73, a retired physician.
Saving and cost of DOGE cuts may never be fully known. Analysis of data shows impact is widespread, from Dinah Voiles-Pulver and John Beasley of USA Today. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk appeared in a White House news conference on February 11th of last year defending plans to cut waste in the federal government with the Department of Government Efficiency. For months last year, his assembled squad and their exploits inside federal agencies dominated headlines. Musk even posed for cameras with a chainsaw, flaunting Doge's cost-cutting requested by President Donald Trump. The fanfare over Doge has faded, but hundreds of legal actions are in process over many of the nearly 30,000 grants and contracts that were terminated. USA Today analyzed the cuts reported during the new administration's first 9.5 months to examine the extent of the reported cost cutting. What we found, based on the most recent accounting provided by Doge's website, which was last updated on October the 4th. First, grants and contracts were ended or prematurely terminated in 64 agencies, departments, or federal bodies. Doge reported $110 billion in savings from those canceled agreements, equal to about $323 for every U.S. resident. Nearly 30% of the grants and contracts had already been fully paid before they were terminated, providing either no immediate savings at all or savings of less than $1. The cuts touched Americans in every state, Puerto Rico, Guam, and Washington, D.C. The pace of terminations reached a height of more than 16,000 in February and March of last year, then slowed to only 373 in September. Terminations of grants and contracts, as well as freezes that are not accounted for in the data, continue in the current year. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has said the contract reviews are returning accountability to a federal government. But there was a price to all the cost cutting, measurable both in dollars and in life-saving health care removed. Agency chaos, derailed research, and uncertainties for local governments, libraries, museums, and other community anchors. Experts tell USA Today the full cost of the Doge cuts and terminations, both direct and indirect, and the toll they've taken on Americans and impoverished people around the globe likely will never be fully known. There were a hurricane that just ran through government with tornadoes in every agency, said Scott Delaney, a co-founder of Grant Witness, an organization formed during the height of Doge cuts to track grants terminated and frozen at the National Science Foundation and National Institutes of Health. The White House did not respond to a request for comment on the savings Doge said it generated or whether its work had the desired impact. Summarizing specific cuts is challenging because federal spending is so difficult to track, said Delaney, a former Harvard scientist whose own Alzheimer's research funding was among the cuts. By virtue of being so imprecise, they screwed stuff up in a way that they can't fix, he said. I do not think that we'll really know the full scope of damage. Long-term costs of canceling the grants and contracts weren't tracked by Doge, and the numbers keep changing. The available data doesn't account for agreements the administration was ordered by the courts to restore or that it negotiated with universities such as Columbia and Harvard. It also doesn't account for grants that were frozen, which are much harder to track, according to Delaney. It's really important to understand that just because Doge said they did it doesn't mean that they actually did. The dollar amounts reported by Doge have been widely disputed. But even incomplete, Delaney said, Doge's data is important because it helps reveal the scope of what happened across the federal government. Delaney and others acknowledged the federal grant-making process had plenty of shortcomings before the Doge cuts. We always try to do better, he said, but we should do it from a place of good faith, not from a place of just hostility towards the government and the scientific enterprise more generally. Wasteful or crucial spending? In the tiny Alaskan village of Kipnuk, the Environmental Protection Agency canceled a $20 million flood mitigation grant in May that was to help stabilize a riverbank. The project, recommended by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, aimed to curb erosion linked to thawing permafrost and an increase in coastal flood events. Months later, Kipnuk was among villages hit by storm surge and flooding when Typhoon Halong battered the Alaskan coast in October of last year. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin defended criticisms by saying the project wouldn't have been complete even if it had not been cut, and likely wouldn't have prevented the destruction and tragedy caused by such a large and devastating typhoon. His post suggesting the cancellation prevented $20 million of hard-working U.S. tax dollars from being swept into the Kokum River angered Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, a Republican. I am outright mad that some have suggested that it is a waste of taxpayer dollars to protect Alaskan communities, Murkowski said in October. We are Americans, she said. Every single person that has been impacted is an American that deserves to be treated with that level of respect.
Moving on to the money section. Tired of hold music? The annoyance economy costs American consumers $166 billion, a study finds. Daniel DeVries of USA Today writes, think about all the time you spend waiting on hold, blocking junk messages, clicking and clicking and clicking to cancel unwanted subscriptions. A new report ascribes a cost to the annoyance economy, all that we pay in lost time and money for the hassles of daily life as American consumers. The study, published in February by the Progressive Groundwork Collaborative think tank, focuses on what it terms a torrent of small abuses heaped on consumers by bad actors and indifferent corporations. Phone scams, robocalls, spam emails, junk fees on tickets, bank transactions, and hotel rooms. A major function of the annoyance economy, the report says, is to make it harder for consumers to accomplish anything that's against a company's financial interest. Consider how much more trying it can be to cancel a subscription than to start one. How long it can take to reach customer service when the app doesn't work. So here's how much the annoyance economy costs you as a consumer. All told, the report says, the annoyance economy costs the American consumer $166 billion a year in lost time and dollars. Here's a rough breakdown. Junk fees, $90 billion. Phone scams, $25.4 billion. Calls with health insurance administrators, $21.6 billion. Waiting for medical services, $19.4 billion. Robocalls, $8 billion. Waiting for government services, $1.6 billion. It's all the ways that people experience friction in their everyday life, said Chad Maisel, policy fellow at Groundwork Collaborative and co-author of the report. He collaborated with Neil Mahoney, Stanford University economist. Maisel related an encounter with the annoyance economy that ate up half an hour of his time one recent day, all for a seemingly innocuous quest to collect a rebate on an order of contact lenses. I had to download an app, he said. I had to print out the receipt I was given because I had to mail it in. And before I mailed it in, I had to take a picture of it and upload it to the app. So companies just don't like to give your money back. The point of the ordeal, Maisel said, was that the company that sold him the contact lenses did not really want to give him the rebate. As a rule, the report found, companies make it very easy to give them your money. Getting it back, that's the chore. A 2024 survey of the news industry found every newspaper allowed new subscribers to sign up online, but fewer than half let the readers cancel without a phone call. In the health insurance industry, Maisel said some carriers still require that certain claims for reimbursement are submitted by fax or mail. If the annoyance economy report has a policy goal, it's going to be to pressure the Trump administration to crack down on consumer abuses. Now, Trump has tried to shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's a federal watchdog agency that has endured a steady drumbeat of criticism from the financial industry and congressional Republicans. In an email statement to USA Today in January, acting CFPB Director Russell Vought said, The Trump administration was overhauling an abusive agency that was weaponized against the American people and industries that serve them. The campaign knocked the wind out of several initiatives championed by consumer advocates. The consumer agency capped many credit card late fees at $8 in 2024. Litigation ensnared the rule, and the agencies eventually abandoned it. The CFPB capped many bank overdraft fees at $5 the same year. Republican lawmakers introduced legislation to reverse the rule. The Biden-era Federal Trade Commission enacted a click-to-cancel rule that would make it as easy to end a subscription as to start. A court struck it down, although a bipartisan bill in Congress now aims to replace it. The Biden administration enacted new rules for airline passengers, providing customer refunds for canceled or disrupted flights and transparency about fees. The Trump administration is scuttling many of those rules. Enforcement against bad actors has been significantly scaled back to the point where it's virtually non-existent, Maisel said. It's both a retreat on the enforcement side, and it's really a lack of proactive, affirmative agenda to set the rules of the road.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:46.
And to wrap up, Maisel's report contends that the annoyance economy is just getting worse. Over the past 2 decades, for example, the amount of time consumers spend on the telephone with customer service agents has risen 60%, the report states, citing data from Federal American Time Use surveys. Credit card late fees and other junk fees have been on the rise. Consumer advocates applauded the annoyance economy report. Consumers should not have to pay in wasted time and surprise charges just to get basic services, said Susan Weinstock, CEO of the Consumer Federation of America. This report underscores how junk fees and needless complexity make the affordability crisis even worse.
Tips to protect your 401k when stocks plummet, by Daniel DeVise of USA Today. When the stock market falls off a cliff, the natural impulse might be to panic and sell. There's nothing so stomach-churning as watching your 401k sink into the red with no bottom in sight. And that's how many investors probably felt on the morning of March the 3rd as stock indexes plummeted in response to escalating conflict in Iran. But panic selling violates 2 or 3 cardinal rules of investing. Buy stocks when prices are low, sell when they're high. Don't make impulsive moves. Stick to the plan. Here are a few rules to remember when markets are reeling. First, don't try to time the market. It might sound tempting to cash out of the stock market when the indexes are falling, sit out the downturn, and reinvest when markets hit bottom. The big problem with that strategy, experts say, is picking the right moment to cash out and cash in. Anytime you're trying to avoid a downturn, the risk of being wrong is pretty high, said Peter Lazaroff, a certified financial planner in St. Louis, speaking to USA Today last year. And you have to be correct twice. As Lazaroff explains, you have to make 2 decisions, when to sell high and when to buy low. Those calls are harder than they sound. So often, some of the absolute worst days in the market are in close proximity to some of the absolute best days in the market, said Christy Achillian, head of the iShares investment strategy, Americas at BlackRock, speaking to USA Today in 2025. Case in point, April 9th, 2025, when stocks rose dramatically after several days of losses amid President Donald Trump's dramatic tariff campaign. The benefit of staying invested is you're going to be in the market on the days when there are the biggest gains, said Patrick Means, Vice President and Branch Manager at a Schwab branch in Dallas, speaking to USA Today in 2025. That leads to our second tip. Stick to the plan. Stocks rise and fall, sometimes dramatically. For long-term investors, experts say, the best strategy is usually to sit back and let the drama play out. Bear markets are usually shorter than bull markets, Schwab notes. Since 1966, The average bear market has lasted about 15 months, while the average bull market has endured for 6 years. Following an investment plan over the long term takes discipline, and it's one of Vanguard's principles for investing success. The others: create clear, appropriate investment goals, maintain a balanced and diversified mix of investments, and minimize costs. You cannot control the markets. You don't know what they're going to do, said James Martielli, head of investment and trading services at Vanguard, speaking to USA Today in 2025. You can't control yourself by not making emotional decisions. And that leads to our third tip: do nothing at all. How stocks are doing today should not matter much to an investor who is in it for the long haul, advisors say. And that advice applies to just about everyone. If you aren't in it for the long haul, experts say, stocks might not be for you. If you need funds soon, don't have it invested, said Randy Bruns, a certified financial planner in Naperville, Illinois, speaking to USA Today in 2025. If you don't need the funds for 15 years, stop looking at the volatility. Market downturns tend to be brief. Recessions are short than they seem. Anyone who is saving for retirement or for other long-term goals can generally ride them out. If you have the luxury of being a long-term investor, be one, Akullian said, and consider buying stocks at a discount. While financial experts don't like to see investors make impulsive trades, stock market dips do create opportunities for anyone looking to buy stocks on sale. The stock market has been historically overpriced. Bargains are few. A market correction means, in effect, that an investor is potentially getting a better deal on any stocks they buy. If you're leery about the volatility of individual stocks, one alternative is to purchase broad index funds, which are generally less risky. Another option is to look for stocks that are not quite as sensitive to swings, BlackRock's Akullian said. And some financial funds and exchange-traded funds are tailored to minimize volatility with a portfolio that is more predictable than the market as a whole. BlackRock offers an explainer sheet on minimum volatility investing.
Sneaking over to page 3, LEDs are making outdoor lighting too bright. Technology can boost or stymie appropriate use. Maddie McGay of NorthJersey.com, part of the USA Today network, writes, "It is a tale that many of us know all too well. You snuggle up in bed after a long day, but instead of drifting off in the dark, your room is illuminated by your neighbor's bright outdoor lights seeping through your windows." Now, outdoor lighting is important. It enhances safety, aesthetics, and functionality of our properties and public spaces. But why has excessively bright outdoor lighting become more of a nuisance than it once was? We can thank technological advancements, the use of high voltage lighting, and lower costs and poor design. The widespread adoption of energy-efficient LED technology over the last 2 decades has widely contributed to brighter outdoor lights, but it's less about the technology itself and more about how it's being used. Now, what's important to understand is it is not the fault of the LED. That technology is super efficient, and the word we use is efficacious, meaning it puts out more illumination per watt, which is what you pay the electric company for, said Michael Dio. So it gives you more lighting value per watt or per dollar than old school incandescent lighting. As a result, people tend to use more of these lights because they're more cost effective. Similarly, low-cost lighting providers like retailers as Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, they can stock the most impressive LED lighting products for the lowest price. But these items lack features that would otherwise prevent them from shining in your neighbor's yard or windows, such as a glare shield to cut off stray light beams. Now, Mr. Dio also said that because many communities consist of older homes, we're often putting new technology in old fixtures. Now, these fixtures may sit at an inconvenient angle, and you're placing a much brighter light in them than what they were originally intended for. Another culprit is high voltage lights, specifically 120 volt systems designed to connect directly to a home's standard electrical power. These systems limit the kind of bulb you can use and where you can face it, according to David Beausoleil, president and founder of Cast Lighting. Some of the brightest houses are the ones that have 120-volt fixtures, where you have a very limited wattage and thus lumen lamp selection. So you're almost forced to put it in much brighter light sources. You also can't move the fixtures because they're fixed and therefore can't adjust where they're facing. These type of fixtures, including such things as floodlights, pole lights, porch lights. Beausoleil also said that some pole and porch lights were designed during a time when candles were used for light, way before electricity, so there's nothing built into them to soften the glare from high voltage lighting. One of the biggest design concepts is that you always want to see the effect of the light, not the source. Compared with this low voltage lighting, which operates using a transformer to reduce power rather than the home's standard electrical power, has much lower lumen levels, meaning you can use more lights without your yard becoming overly bright. Low voltage systems offer more flexibility in how you can position the lights, he said, giving you the chance to adjust your fixtures and prevent them from blinding your neighbors. While it's not feasible for every homeowner, hiring an outdoor lighting designer, it's actually the best way to ensure your home is lit properly without disturbing those around you. Mm-hmm. In general, Dio said homeowners tend to use just one or two bright fixtures because it's the only outdoor lighting they have. But when a professional lighting designer comes in, he said, they add more lighting sources so that the home is still properly illuminated without each light source having to be so bright. Beausoleil said his process is broken down into three parts: laying out the design, installing, and making necessary adjustments. He said that they are able to ensure that you're getting the appropriate amount of light around your home without it flooding your neighbors. A professional lighting designer also has access to fixtures with glare shields, lenses, and other features that homeowners' model lighting fixtures won't always have. It's all about the design and putting the design together, Beausoleil said. The installation, that's the easy part, but getting that right design, executing it, and that final adjustment is what makes good turn into absolutely magnificent. Bright lights contribute to light pollution, which comes in four main forms: light trespass, sky glow, glare, and clutter. Now, light trespass means when artificial light spills beyond its intended boundaries, and glare. In order to make meaningful changes, Maricondo said, it's all about educating the public. He said people can get involved in their local green teams and environmental organizations, attend presentations by local experts, and advocate for light pollution ordinances in their communities. I'm finding that once people are aware of the problem, they're much more likely to do something about it.
You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, March the 5th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
Not interested,
You
yeah.
weren't interested. So, okay, you're done.
We're going to continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Jim Duffy.
and Ken Drost. Trump, I really don't care if Iran comes for the World Cup. Sports section begins with a really sad article. Team official doubts playing amid the war. Now, President Donald Trump was blunt when discussing the possibility of Iran missing the 2026 World Cup, saying he doesn't really care whether the Middle East country travels to the U.S. for the tournament. Iran's participation has been thrown into doubt following the events of the past few days, with the United States and Israel launching attacks on Iran starting February 28th. The military campaign killed the nation's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and dozens of top officials. They have responded with attacks on several U.S. military facilities around the Middle East. Iran is currently scheduled to play New Zealand in Los Angeles on June 15, Belgium in Los Angeles on June 21, and Egypt in Seattle on June 26. With Iran's participation in serious doubt just 3 months from kickoff, Trump told Politico on March the 3rd he's not bothered about whether the Team Melli shows up. I don't really care, Trump said. I think Iran is a very badly defeated country. They're running on fumes. In the immediate aftermath of the attacks over the weekend, FIFA Secretary General Matthias Grafstrom said his organization was focused on all the teams participating in the World Cup as planned. But Iran Soccer Federation president cast doubt on his country's participation in the aftermath of the U.S.-led war. What is certain is that after this attack, we cannot be expected to look forward to the World Cup with any hope. Mehdi Taj told Iran state television. FIFA President Gianni Infantino, who awarded Trump the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize in December, has not addressed the situation in the Middle East directly since the outbreak of the conflict.
NFL running back duo tag winners and losers. From Nate Davis of USA Today. The NFL's annual game of tag has come to an end, and 4 guys are in it. The league's deadline to apply franchise and transition tags, mechanisms designed to reward pending free agents while simultaneously hindering their ability to test the market, expired at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, March the 3rd. Aside from New York Jets running back Breece Hall, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Daniel Jones, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver George Pickens, and Atlanta Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts, every other NFL player on an expiring contract is now free to test the free agent market. Its negotiating window is set to open March the 9th. New deals can be signed on March the 11th. As for those who get tagged, some will win, some will lose. Some are born to sing the blues. First, the winners. Daniel Jones. The Colts' number one quarterback, at least until he ruptured his Achilles last December, received the transition tag March the 3rd, the first quarterback to get one since 1996. And while it stands to reason Indy will find a way to keep a guy who had a career year in 2025 despite the injury and had revitalized the club to that point, this development is also pretty good news for Jones. The tag ensures he will make $37.8 million in 2026 if he plays on it. But given the Colts wouldn't receive any compensation if another club tries to pry Jones away, little reason for other teams not to consider offer sheets that would only escalate his price point in a year when QB should be in high demand. Next, Alec Pierce. Jones' primary deep receiving threat in Indy. Pierce avoided a tag altogether after the Colts were compelled to use it on the quarterback. A second-round pick in 2022, Pierce has led the NFL in yards per catch each of the last 2 seasons and is coming off his first 1,000-yard receiving campaign. Decent chance he resigns. Better chance he takes the opportunity to fully explore his market, first given he could make north of $20 million annually. Next, Trey Hendrickson. Worth wondering if he likes George Michael's music. If so, Hendrickson surely has freedom, blasting in the aftermath of his financial battles with the Cincinnati Bengals in recent years. Despite being injured and missing 10 games in 2025, the 35 total sacks the defensive end collected over the previous 2 seasons should still earn him a massive contract. Tyler Linderbaum. Despite fielding what Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta deemed a market-setting offer, the 3-time Pro Bowl center is set to go free, if only temporarily, and gauge what could be the most lucrative market anyone explores this offseason, almost certainly so among non-quarterbacks. Breece Hall. He stands to make $14.3 million on the tag, nearly $4 million more than he's earned during the entirety of his 4-year Jets career. Even better, he can sit and watch peers like free agent Kenneth Walker III get paid, while superstar backs such as Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are positioned for massive extensions of their own. What does it mean? The longer Hall waits to sign, the more his price tag should rise. Kenneth Walker III, the Super Bowl MVP, was not tagged by the Seattle Seahawks. He'll get financially bagged quite handsomely, likely by another team. If he moves on, he'd be the 4th Super Bowl MVP to switch clubs in the subsequent season. George Pickens. Pickens is guaranteed $27.3 million in 2026 if he plays on the tag. Now, the losers. Once again, George Pickens. If Pickens plays on the tag, that presumably means a lengthy failed negotiation with Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, and very likely an unhappy player expected to skip most, if not all, of the offseason. Kenneth Walker III. Hard to believe the grass will be a brighter shade of action green, one of the Seahawks' official colors, wherever Walker might head next, assuming he does. Also, much harder to believe Walker will be playing for another Super Bowl MVP next season in a different uniform. Breece Hall. He obviously wasn't thrilled to see high-profile former teammates Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams leave the Jets at last year's trade deadline, when it seemed Hall might also get liberated. But remaining hitched to arguably the league's worst outfit maybe isn't so bad, even if Hall isn't guaranteed Saquon Barkley-level lettuce. Maybe Hall even becomes a foundational piece of a much-improved roster if the New York Jets can successfully convert all of their draft and cap capital over the next few years. If, at least, Hall managed to keep any emotions out of his thumbs on March the 3rd. Baltimore Ravens. Offensive line was a serious issue in Charm City last year, but now the team stands to lose Linderbaum, arguably QB Lamar Jackson's most reliable bodyguard. But given franchise tag values are formulated by the top paid blockers, DeCosta couldn't franchise Linderbaum and effectively grant him left tackle caliber compensation. Kyle Pitts. Barring an extension, Pitts is assured of making $15 million next season. It's a good chunk of change, but Pitts will have to hope new Atlanta Falcons head coach Kevin Stefanski, and he likes to deploy multiple tight ends, figures out how to optimize his estimable abilities. David Njoku was something of a Pitts-adjacent player in terms of ability, but only had 1 season with Pitts-adjacent numbers and 6 years under Stefanski in Cleveland with the Browns. And finally, the Indianapolis Colts. By failing to get extensions done with Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce, the Colts will be lucky to pay top dollar in order to retain both players. And that will make it more challenging to import another stud, say Trey Hendrickson. And don't forget, General Manager Chris Ballard has no first-round draft pick this year after obtaining Sauce Gardner.
Back to the front page, the presidential seal of approval. Trump now fully engaged in fixing college sports, starting with the roundtable. Matt Hayes of USA Today Sports Network writes, first, the obvious. Everyone has an angle. So, when we delve into the morass of fixing college sports, keep that at the forefront. It doesn't matter how many blue ribbon commissions are held, or how many superstars or influencers or heroes of the past join the fight. Doesn't even matter if the President of the United States decides to weigh in. You cannot sell a plan to fix what's broken if somebody doesn't want to hear it. unless they're ordered by law to do so. President Donald Trump's committee to fix college sports. Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like an opportunity for some of the heavy hitters of the sport, past and present, to find answers to a rapidly devolving situation. But the front porch of any change begins and ends with the university presidents and chancellors of the Big Ten and the SEC, and by proxy, their right-hand men, commissioners. Tony Petty, Petitti, and Greg Sankey, the same two guys who can't agree on a simple format change for a multi-billion-dollar college football playoff that would ensure even more money for all conferences. So, now keep that in mind when Trump and Nick Saban and Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow and university presidents and conference commissioners meet March 6th to discuss how to get their arms around this unwieldy mess while also dealing with the intensely tribal environment of Washington, D.C. Now, there's enough fault here to last two blue ribbon committees. It's not just sharing media rights revenue or returning to the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961. We are now in an era where college athletes, specifically football and basketball, because those sports drive revenue, have annual, unfettered free agency. Season after season, schools can now bid for players to improve their rosters. Contracts are not really being honored because in some cases, they're really not contracts. And everybody from coaches to players to general managers to sports agents are gaming the system. Meanwhile, we've all but eliminated the college experience, the ideals of growing and maturing, the joy of learning and loving, and, even losing. Failure, along the greatest motivator of the college and life experience, has been all but eliminated. If you fail at one school, another one is going to throw cash at you to try it again. Academics are now secondary to team building, with every university turning admission processes into income. Come on if you're an athlete. When Cal Berkeley, the number one public institution in the United States, and not exactly the easiest place to be academically accepted, allows 32 transfers, many who have already played at multiple schools, in one transfer portal recruiting class, we might have a problem. By comparison, Stanford, the number one private institution in the U.S., and not exactly the easiest place to be academically accepted, allowed 6 transfers from Washington, Bucknell, UCLA, Michigan, Yale, and Harvard. A veritable who's who among academia. I realize academics mean very little in this football-basketball equation, but the exercise of explaining how far off course we have traveled in such a short time cannot go unnoticed by the Presidential Commission, or whatever they're calling it. They'll argue about money. They'll give slight mention to academics. Meanwhile, the lost value of the college experience, those 4 and 5 years of invaluable life learning, personal growth, have somehow morphed into an annual cash grab. I don't blame the players. This is the setup they have been given, and they are taking advantage of it until the legal system says otherwise. They were at the short end of the deal for the first 150 years of college football, given a degree and professional development in their sport in exchange for generating untold billions for universities. So all of those important faces of college sports will talk about change this week, and they'll look at numbers and projections of how much money the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 can add to the pie. They'll talk about how a collective television deal could lead to more money and not limit the Big Ten and SEC earnings. The framework is everyone gets more at their current percentages. Petitti and Sankey say it's a pipe dream. There's no concrete evidence that shows schools can make more money by collectively bargaining with providers. Cody Campbell, chairman of the Texas Tech's Board of Regents and Trump's point man on fixing college sports, has said for months the Sports Broadcasting Act and the money it will generate can save women and Olympic sports from disastrous futures. A billionaire booster at Texas Tech, Campbell says he has spent personal millions to research the potential increase in revenue the Sports Broadcasting Act will bring as part of his Saving College Sports campaign. The same campaign, the Big Ten and SEC, who, remember now, can't agree on anything of late, criticized together February 26th when releasing their white paper to congressional leaders. I can't, for the life of me, figure out why they released that right now, Campbell told USA Today Sports, February 26th. I can. You can't sell a plan to fix what's broken if somebody doesn't want to hear it. Oh, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:16.
Wife's tough love helped fuel Russell Henley's 2025 API win. From Adam Chupak of Golf Week and the USA Today Network, Russell Henley has shown up as the defending champion to the PGA Tour events a total of 5 times. But for some reason, this one at the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill Club and Lodge feels different, he said. I watched this tournament since I was a little kid to see all the amazing finishes coming down 18, and to do that and to play well under pressure and win this tournament is just a dream come true, he said during his pre-tournament interview on March the 3rd. It's still kind of crazy to think that I did that. Henley, who is 36, has worked hard at every part of his game, becoming one of the best ball strikers on tour in recent years. But desperate to improve a bulky stroke with the short stick, Henley sought help from one of the top putting instructors, Phil Kenyon. I've just tried to listen to everything he said. From the start, working with Phil, I've just said, what do you want me to do? Because I was just so lost with my game, with my putting a few years back, and just super inconsistent. Didn't really have a great plan, explained Henley, who ranked 10th in the strokes gained, putting en route to the API title. With his repeatable action and pinpoint control, Henley has transformed his game into one of the most consistent golfers on tour. Before winning the Arnold Palmer Invitational, he was tied for the most top 10s without a win since 2024, 10 with Sungjae Im, and from the Memorial in late May through the American Express in late January, he had not finished outside the top 20 in 10 starts. Sam Saunders, the grandson of Palmer and former tour pro who is now involved in making sure the tournament bearing his grandfather's name is a success, described Henley as a gritty competitor and said he wasn't surprised at all to Henley's rise to the top at Bay Hill. We get the course running firm and fast, which has become the identity of Bay Hill, and there's nothing that identifies the best player at the highest level better than firm and fast conditions. Saunders said, it means you have to drive the ball in the fairway, you have to hit greens with good iron shots, and your short game better be sharp if you get out of position. When the course is soft, it can become a putting contest, and I never think of Bay Hill that way. It's a course that tests all parts of your game, and that's where Russell can excel. A year ago, Henley's test included trying to chase down Colin Morikawa, the 54-hole leader who holed a bunker shot at the first and took a 3-stroke lead to the back 9 at Arnie's Place. Henley had made bogeys at both par 5s on the front 9, including making 2 lousy chips at number 6. I didn't really feel like I had a great chance at that point, he said. But it's become a mistake to underestimate Henley, one of the most underrated players on tour. With his victory, he moved to number 7 in the world and would later climb to a career high of number 3. But Henley admitted he doesn't think of himself as one of the top 10 in the world. Henley's run of good form can no longer be overlooked after the way he made his move on the back 9 at Bay Hill a year ago. Henley saved the heroics for the par 5 16th after blocking a 7-iron for his second shot that missed the green to the right. But he drew a favorable lie in the rough, and his chip came out just the way he pictured it to be, with one exception. I hit my landing spot but clearly misjudged the speed, because if it didn't hit the pin, it probably would have gone 8 feet by the hole, Henley recounted. After holing out from 54 feet, Henley slapped hands with Sanders, but that was the extent of the celebration. I didn't feel like there was much to smile about at that point, Henley explained. There was just a lot of really tough golf ahead of me. I felt like it was time to get really focused on what I need to do on my next shot. 2 hard-earned pars sealed the deal, a final round 2 under 70 and 72 hole total of 11 under 277 for his 5th career PGA Tour title. It's the best golf I've played to win one, said Henley, who played the last 7 holes in 4 under to come out on top on one of the most demanding courses on the PGA Tour and against a strong signature field, event field. Perhaps that explains, too, why Henley wore the red alpaca winner's sweater so much the following week at the Players' Championship. 3 years after his wife called him out for his negativity during a low moment in his career, Henley woke up at the Players' Championship and rocked his new sweater while drinking his morning coffee, and reflected about how thankful he was to have won the biggest tournament of his career. To have my name on that trophy, along with all the other greats who have won it before me, will always be very special. To have won Mr. Palmer's tournament and think about what he meant to the game is even cooler. I remember how he wrote me a letter after I won my first pro tournament on the Korn Ferry Tour as an amateur, and that was cool, to see his signature on a note to me. I got to meet him at the Arnold Palmer Cup, and I got to thank him for the letter.
Wearing USA jerseys in the WBC exhibition meant everything to MLB superstars. Bob Nightingale, columnist for USA Today, writes, "It may have been a mere spring training game, one that will be forgotten by morning, with statistics that are never going to appear on the back of a bubblegum card. But don't try telling that to defending National League Cy Young winner Paul Skeens. This is a game he's never going to forget." Skeens stood on the field March 3rd, standing at full attention during the national anthem, staring at the American flag on the scoreboard, watching and listening to the military fly over, and trying to keep his emotions in check. Here he was, less than 4 years from leaving the Air Force Academy, where he had planned to be a pilot, serving his country, pitching for Team USA, with his parents driving over from Southern California to see him in action. "I was going and treating it as a spring training game, a little bit," Skeens said, "but it's tough when you wear a USA across your chest. It means so much more." Skeens was still in full uniform when he spoke on the field after the game, one of 2 exhibitions for Team USA, before it departs to Houston for the World Baseball Classic, still not ready to take it off. Skeens and the rest of his teammates say they were still pumped up after listening to 23-time gold medal winning swimmer Michael Phelps address them at their private team dinner March the 2nd at the Global Ambassador. Excuse me. He dominated the San Francisco Giants in USA's 15-1 rout March the 3rd, giving up just 1 hit and 1 run while striking out 4 batters at Scottsdale Stadium. He showed off his dominance while facing Giants all-star shortstop Willie Adams for his final hitter. Adams, who doubled off Skeens on a slider to lead off the first inning, saw nothing but fastballs. Skeens blew 98-mile-per-hour fastballs past him, with Adams swinging and missing on a 98.5-mile-per-hour pitch for the 3rd strike. It was vintage Skeens, who was so efficient during his 40-pitch outing. He went back to the bullpen for more work. He will start Game 3 against Mexico on March the 9th at Dakin Park in Houston, and then, providing the USA advances, will start in its semifinal game. Winning gold is the biggest thing, Skeens said. Whichever game I'm pitching in, doesn't really matter. Just want to win gold. It was the message that Phelps, who sat on the bench March 3rd, wearing a USA uniform, sent to the team at its team dinner. He reminded the team that he won 28 medals, but 23 of those are the ones that mean everything to him. Those are the gold medals. He pretty much said there's nothing better than winning gold for USA. It's a brotherhood, a fraternity of men and women who compete for our country and won the gold. That fraternity was on full display when every single player on Team USA not only stayed for the entire game, but remained in uniform. Even the pitchers who didn't pitch in the game stayed in uniform. Nobody rushed out to beat the traffic. Nobody dressed early to hang out in popular Old Town Scottsdale. Everybody stayed for the duration of the 3-hour, 5-minute game, even with the game lasting 10 innings, simply for USA reliever Gabe Speier to get in some work. I turned to Judgy, he means Aaron Judge, and I turned to all of the coaches and said this has got a different feel than 2023, according to USA manager Mark DeRosa, whose team won the silver in the last WBC. It just did. Not a single guy left. It's impressive. It speaks to the testament of guys wanting to be here and the character of them. You're looking down the line and you see Alex Bregman talking to Roman Anthony. You're seeing Tariq Skubal and Skeens standing top step. You're seeing Judge and Cal Raleigh talk. I mean, that's what everybody wanted to create, an environment where these guys did not want to leave. This from Bregman, who homered. I feel like there's a certain excitement that you could feel the minute you walked into the clubhouse. The focus level is at an all-time high. Still, as much as the exhibition game meant to Team USA on its quest for a gold medal, it was moving, even emotional for reliever Griffin Jacks and Skeens. Jacks graduated from the United States Air Force Academy. Skeens went to the academy for 2 years before transferring to LSU, but still wants to serve his country after his playing career ends. That's why I wanted to serve, why I went to the U.S. Air Force Academy. According to Skeens, he wanted to be an F-16 pilot. He had 2 uncles who served in the Navy, 1 in the Coast Guard. Those folks don't get the recognition they deserve. DeRosa couldn't even get through his prepared speech to recruit Skeens to play in the WBC when Skeens told him, "Stop, no need." "I had this big pitch laid out there," DeRosa said. "He's changed the game." But he was like, "I want to do this for every serviceman and woman that protects our freedom." At the end of the day, that's all that needs to be said. There's something very special about representing your country. I mean, they gave their life to kind of live in that process. It was no different with Jacks. He let his agent know during the summer he badly wanted to play in the WBC and spread the word. DeRosa finally called him, started a casual conversation. Jacks cut him off. He started the conversation slow and steady, Jack said, and I was like, "Just give it to me. Just say it. I need to hear it, okay?" So there they were together, March 3rd, pitching on the same team, in the same game, for the first time in their lives, on a day that will be cherished in Air Force Academy lore. "Today was just awesome," said Jacks, who was on the Tampa Bay Rays staff. "It was the most amount of juice I've had in a long time. Just walking into the clubhouse, putting the uniform on, all of those guys. It's different." Their teammates could also sense the emotions by Skeens and Jack, knowing what this means to them as 2 men who signed up with the Air Force Academy to serve their country and are the only active MLB players with military experience. Who can blame the entire team for feeling patriotic during the national anthem and the military flyover with 2 former Academy cadets on their pitching staff? "That was awesome," USA first baseman Bryce Harper said. I grew up right next to Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. So I always saw the bombers flying over and stealth jets and, everything else. Really cool experience. I saw the Blue Angels flying around there and doing that kind of stuff, and we'd hear it like 6, 7 in the morning, and then the bombers would fly over and it'd be as loud as crap. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:30. And to finish up, you represent something way bigger than yourself. You're fighting and playing for the people that made this available to us, for our freedom, everything else. We owe a lot to the military and the service, to what they've done for us. And yeah, by the time the WBC is over, everybody on Team USA is going to know the stories of Jax and Skanes at the Air Force Academy, the sacrifices, the commitment of still serving their country. Jax is a captain in the U.S. Air Force Reserves, and Skanes vows to serve in some capacity, even if it's a coach at the academy when his baseball career ends. Just hearing the pride they have for this country and to be able to wear this uniform and have the flag on the arm, Judge said, that's pretty cool. Yeah, really cool.
New betting fave for NBA rookie, and it's not flag. From Mark Giannotto of USA Today. These are unsettled times for the NBA's rookie class coming out of the league's All-Star break, and less than 6 weeks remaining in the 2025-26 regular season. There's a new betting favorite to win Rookie of the Year, and it's not Cooper Flagg for the first time this season. Injuries and tanking have also created a fascinating race for all rookie status down the stretch, with at least one spot on the first team and the second team still to be determined by how these rookies perform over the next month. Charlotte Hornets guard Con Keppel and Philadelphia 76ers counterpart VJ Edgecombe led the way in recent weeks with Flagg hurt, while second-round pick Maxine Reynaud of the Sacramento Kings and Utah Jazz wing Ace Bailey each saw their stock rise by stringing together several strong efforts after the All-Star break. Now, the author ranks what he feels are the top 10 rookies as of this reading. Number 10, Ace Bailey from the Utah Jazz. Number 9, Colin Murray Boyles of the Toronto Raptors. Number 8, Jeremiah Fears of the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 7, Dylan Harper from the San Antonio Spurs. Number 6, Cedric Coward from the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 5, Maxine Reynaud, from the Sacramento Kings. Number 4, Derek Queen of the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 3, VJ Edgecombe of the Philadelphia 76ers. Number 2, Cooper Flagg, Dallas Mavericks. And number 1, as he mentioned, Con Keppel of the Charlotte Hornets.
After the release, Kyle Murray's deck of options is wide open. Nick Brinkerhoff writes a brief article and laundry list. All aboard the quarterback carousel. Might not be a good year to need a game changer at the most important position in sports, but it's not a bad year for the veteran quarterback market. Plenty of proven names are set to hit the open market following trades or releases with their former clubs, opening the door for some new looks in 2026. Kyler Murray is one who is now atop that list after the Arizona Cardinals informed the 7-year veteran they intended to release him on the first day of the league year, March 11, barring a trade between now and then. There will be no shortage of suitors for that quarterback, who has proved to be a solid dual-threat option in the league, despite making just one playoff appearance with the Cards. If he lands in the right situation, that could make all the difference for Murray and the team that secures his services. So here's a look at some of the top landing spots for Murray in free agency. Vikings. If win now is what Murray wants to do, win now is what he could do with the Vikings. They are a roster built for success right now. And the quarterback change from Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy proved to be the difference in 2025. Darnold won't be walking through that door, but perhaps Murray could be the change Minnesota needs. The Vikings are loaded with talent on offense, which would give Murray the best supporting cast of his career. His dual threat ability can open up Kevin O'Connell's offense in a way that it hasn't been. If they get a motivated Murray, Minnesota could quickly right the wrong and become a contender in the NFC North again. Next, New York Jets. The Jets would be wise to leave no stone unturned this offseason when it comes to the quarterback spot. They can try the draft, reclamation projects, veteran, change the scenery, even more. Murray might be the most talented of the bunch, but New York is a team that can capitalize on a better quarterback class in the 27 draft, if they are willing to wait that long. However, the biggest factor standing in the way of Murray heading to the Jets is the new offensive coordinator, Frank Reich. The OC has typically fared well with the taller, more prototypical quarterback builds than those of smaller frames. If Reich has learned from his experience with Bryce Young in Carolina, there are certainly worse ideas for the quarterback-starved franchise. Next, Miami Dolphins. Out with the old, in with the new. There is a changing of the guard taking place in South Beach this offseason as the Dolphins look to move on from Tua Tagovailoa. Like Murray, both of these players check in as change of scenery candidates. Since Tagovailoa's departure will cost Miami a ton, regardless of the release designation, Murray could slide in as a talented quarterback who shouldn't cost too much. In many ways, it would be the best of both worlds, for player and franchise. If the experiment works out, the 28-year-old could find a long-term home in the Sunshine State. And I'm very sad about that because I just learned how to pronounce Tagovailoa. Cleveland Browns. Much like the Jets, the Browns are starved for a quarterback who can win football games. If Murray can do that, he is automatically on the list. The Browns already have Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel on the roster, but none of them are tied to the new head coach, Todd Monken. The coach already admitted that he will not name a starter at this stage, that the players are going to decide with their on-field performance. Monken, who was the offensive coordinator for Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, has experience working with a mobile quarterback and getting the best out of him. Now, since Cleveland is not in a spot to draft a franchise quarterback, taking a flyer on Murray might be the next best thing. And finally, the Atlanta Falcons. Is Kevin Stefanski married to the idea of Michael Penix Jr. as his starting quarterback for this year? You wouldn't know if he was after the coach declined to name Penix as the starter. With Kirk Cousins set to be released, it raises the question, who else would be the starter for Atlanta? Could it be Murray? Penix's injury history is a key concern for the Falcons going forward after his 2025 season was cut short with a torn ACL. While the team invested a high draft pick in the quarterback, Stefanski isn't the one who made the selection. He could easily pivot to somebody like Murray, who would step into an offense with plenty of talent to work with. As far as landing spots go, this has to be one of the most intriguing, under-the-radar options to monitor.
Turning to the life section of USA Today, Richard Marx loves Elvis and the Sun, from Melissa Ruggieri of USA Today. Richard Marx is an ace musician, but he's also a champion conversationalist. The singer, songwriter, producer who has commandeered the charts for decades with more than 30 top 40 pop and adult contemporary hits can easily zigzag topics, whether music past and current, shaking a martini, or applying moisturizer. Marx talked to USA Today recently about his new album, After Hours, which embraces the Great American Songbook and podcast YouTube series Stories to Tell. But he also took time to chat about some of his favorite music. How, at age 62, he still looks like the guy who dropped Don't Mean Nothing in 1987, and yes, his spectacular hair. Marx is an Elvis devotee. Marx was about 8 years old when he purchased his first album, Elvis Presley's 68 Comeback Special, spending $8.99 of his allowance. I was the Elvis freak in the house. My dad was never an Elvis fan. He was a jazz musician. He looked down on Elvis but came to appreciate his charisma and performance. My mom loved Elvis, but not like I did, Marx says. The first time I saw him on TV, I was captivated like everyone else. Marx says he's constantly listening to new music, with his favorite of the past few years, the Canadian electronic duo Bob Moses. I'm obsessed with them, he says. But there is one classic embedded in Marx's musical soul. Earth, Wind & Fire's 1979 gem, I Am, which includes the Evergreens' Boogie Wonderland and After the Love Has Gone. It's my desert island disc, he says. I've written with Philip Bailey, but the heart of that group was the late Maurice White. He was a hero of mine. His voice, he's one of the most underrated singers ever. Marx has worked with dozens of artists, but one stands out. I'm going to answer this differently than I thought I would, Marx says when asked who his favorite collaborator has been during his lengthy career. I've written many songs with Keith Urban, including 3 of his hits, and it's never a particularly enjoyable experience, he says, continuing. It's laborious. The music usually comes fast to us and we riff off each other, but when it comes to lyrics, it's not fun. We had some contentious moments working together, but I love what I've done with Keith. Marx cites Urban's 2011 anthem Long Hot Summer as one of his favorites, which the pair wrote in 3 writing sessions in 3 cities. My relationship with Keith is interesting in that we butt heads, but I love him, and at the end of the day, what we have written together I really hold dear. The Lith, Marx has been a vegetarian, sometimes vegan most of his life, as well as someone committed to fitness. But when he turned 62 years ago, he made a major change in his diet and cut out all added sugar. After a few months of new regimen, he had some medical tests, and my doctor went, "Dude, you're 60 and you have no inflammation in your body." And I drink, he says with a laugh. Marx, who lives in Hidden Hills, California, with his wife Daisy Fuentes, also is a fan of the sun. I'll sit in the sun for 20 minutes without any sunscreen. Get my vitamin D. The sun is not our enemy, he says. He's tried meditation, but I always fall asleep. My meditation is to take an hour-long hike. Age also has injected Marx with a modified philosophical outlook on life. It can be such a bummer, but I'm starting to be conscious of how much time I have left. I don't want to waste time. I want to get experiences. I have 3 sons I'm really close to. I'm madly in love. Daisy and I have so much fun together. We have a lot of stuff we have to do, but we just need to have fun, he says. Marx's coif, legendary in the 80s and 90s, and just as lush today, isn't the product of genetics, but he says luck. I have a half-brother who is bald. So I'm lucky. I have all this hair. God knows I've tortured with product and hair straightener, and it's still like, love ya, still here. And Marx isn't a Botox guy for now. Given Marx's proclivity for the sun, he knows he has to stay moisturized to combat the effect of the rays. His wife is always ready to give an assist. Daisy will be standing next to me in the bathroom and going, "Oh my God, is that how you put lotion on your face?" She always has some retinol and all that stuff, and I'm becoming a bit more diligent about my skin. As for Botox, Marx isn't against it, but never say never. I do know that my vanity will probably get the best of me. That's the reason my hair isn't white. I let my hair go gray a little during the pandemic, and my oldest son, Brandon, went, "Dad, you need to color your hair because you look 10 years older."
I could have lived without that. Streaming preview. Netflix's Sexy Vladimir is cringeworthy, but in a good way. Kelly Lawler, columnist for USA Today, writes, Vladimir is designed to unmoor you. If you're the type who needs to avert their eyes from cringe or appalling actions by messed up people, Netflix's new erotic thriller and dark comedy Vladimir it's not for you. It's a deeply uncomfortable and indecent story, packaged in such a discomfiting way to make you squirm in your seat, dive behind the couch from secondhand embarrassment and other feelings. But if you can stomach the series' many moments of awkwardness and deliberate ignorance of social norms, you will be rewarded with one of the more gripping, addictive, and thoughtful meditations on our politically correct society, plus a bombshell Rachel Weisz performance. What else can you expect from the hot TV show of the week? You're listening to a reading of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:45. And continuing, Vladimir, now streaming 3.5 stars out of 4. I'm sorry, 3 stars out of 4, is juicy, seductive, compelling, off-putting, and it's all positive. It's set at a modern-day university amid the fraught social politics of the post-#MeToo era. Vladimir is the best of a recent string of stories set in such circumstances, even including Julia Roberts' 2025 film After the Hunt, and Netflix's own Sandra Oh starring series The Chair. Perhaps the reason the series is so apt is it does not try to provide any answers to the big questions facing our society, workplaces, college campuses. Rather, it happily lampoons the parties involved and uses the uncertainty of the community as an ideally chaotic backdrop for bad characters to do bad things. And it's so irresistibly delicious to watch them be so very bad. Now, Weisz is the series' unparalleled star, and her fourth wall-breaking, nameless protagonist is enigmatic and intriguing. A writer and English professor at a small provincial college, her own career and identity have been superseded by that of her husband, John, played by John Slattery, the department's chair, currently suspended pending an investigation into his sexual relationships with multiple students. Weisz's character is unbothered. They have an open marriage. She personally sees no impropriety in teacher-student relations. What does bother her? Get her hot and bothered, is a new professor at the school, an up-and-coming young author named Vladimir, played by Leo Woodall from the White Lotus fame. The protagonist's infatuation with Vladimir and her husband's professional peril grow in tandem over the slow-burning season, which takes place over 6 weeks, leading up to a dramatic event teased in the opening episode. The themes of obsession, betrayal, and power are always present, as are apt literary references to novels like Lolita and Rebecca. Only this time, the gaze is distinctly female. Using the magnetism that has served her throughout her career, Weisz is the perfect center around which the show revolves. She's disgusting and alluring in equal measure, a train wreck and a gorgeous luxury car. Her performance is big and loud and lewd, as her character demands. Woodall gives back in equal measure. Not quite the innocent, happily married man he appears to be at the series' start. Boundaries are crossed, but that's only the start of the twist-happy story. Vladimir is the kind of TV show that starts at an 8 and only revs up from there. Fast-paced, heart-racing, without any computer-generated imagery explosions or daring deeds. The tension that keeps you on the edge of your seat is workplace conversations that go just a little too far. Spouses who should not be out without their partners, and people on the edge of blowing up their entire lives. There is a risk built into every conversation and interaction. It could all fall apart at any moment, and the audience cannot wait to find out who's going to fall next. Don't look away. Stay for the ride.
Applegate pulls no punches in memoir from Eric Jensen of USA Today. Since spotting the brass and terrazzo stars of the Hollywood Walk of Fame constellation at 5 years old, Christina Applegate knew she wanted one of her own, a way for her memory to remain long after she's gone. She first grasped stardom in 1975 when she became a card-carrying member of the SAG-AFTRA for a series of Kmart radio spots. But as her career rocketed from TV show guest appearances to starring as bird-brained bombshell Kelly Bundy on Fox's Married with Children and such films as The Sweetest Thing and Anchorman, the name she had been making for herself felt less like her identity and more like another role. Christina Applegate is a character, a person who was beholden to people and production companies and everything and everyone else in this town, she writes in her memoir. You with the sad eyes out now. She was someone I never was. When I hear that name, I catch my breath, and yet I also don't want the world to fully know who I am either. I suppose this book is a small step to showing you all who I really am. Actually, a big step. I've been waiting to put this blank on paper for 40 years, she tells USA Today in late February from her bed, where she's sick as a dog from a viral infection. But Applegate, who was 54, didn't anticipate how difficult it would be unearthing all of these things that were so unbelievably horrifying in my life, which she has stuffed into what I call my trauma ball in my stomach. She uses excerpts from journals she started at age 13 that were supposed to go into a fire and die with me, she says. It was not cathartic. It was explosive, she says. I feel very raw. Applegate's revelations are personal and unedited, she says. She recalls knowing on her wedding day to actor Jonathan Sayich that he wasn't the man for her. I never considered stopping the wedding. For a start, I was halfway down the aisle, she explains in her book. I kept thinking, don't be that guy. You're sabotaging. They were married for 4 years before he filed for divorce. She remembers battling anorexia while filming Married with Children. I had a vision of the specific clothes I wanted, which was playing Kelly, to wear, and to wear those clothes. I had to lean even deeper into my eating disorder, Applegate writes. The anorexia was terrible. I wanted my bones to be sticking out. If I did eat something, I'd punish myself. Sometimes I wouldn't eat for a whole day. She writes of being sexually assaulted at 5 years old when her story darkens almost to black, and though I wish I could draw a veil across these pages, I also a witness to that little girl. When she was older, she had a boyfriend so abusive she worried he would kill her. In 1991, as a young actress, she ended a pregnancy, which inspired her to write a heartbreaking poem. But Mommy can't be with you right now, but know she loves you more than any other miracle. And know that when it's your time, it will be your time. I'm really scared, Applegate says, because I'm going to get some judgment about certain decisions I made, some very personal ones. For the book, Applegate recorded herself talking for 100 hours over a year, she says. It was like having a therapy session, and I couldn't stop. I didn't judge myself, and I didn't want to judge myself, and I didn't want to edit myself either. I wanted it to be everything that was coming out of my brain to my face hole, and that was it. I was like, okay, I'm going to be free of this now. I want to be free of it. I want to be free of all of this blank that has been stuck inside of my soul, inside of my ball of trauma. I want to let it go. I'll never let it go, Applegate says. You never do, but it is, let me be your friend, guys, because I've got you. If you went through this abuse, if you went through this blank, I've got you. I hear you. The 3 million people living with multiple sclerosis around the world may see themselves as Applegate. She was diagnosed in 2021 while filming the final season of Netflix's Dead to Me. My knees feel like I have bricks attached to them, heavy and painful, Applegate writes of her symptoms of the disease in which the immune system attacks the central nervous system. My skin feels like it's got 3rd degree, 4th degree, 5th degree burns. Something is constantly stabbing at my ankles. When I put my feet down on the ground when I wake up, it feels as if the floor is made of needles. Yet I can't feel them because my feet are completely numb. Somehow it manages to be both things at once. Applegate's decline came over a matter of months, she says. I was hiking and running and playing tennis in January of 2021. By June of that year, I couldn't walk anymore, she says. My daughter Sadie, whom she shares with husband Martin Lenoble, saw a parent that she loved dancing with and playing tennis with and hiking with and doing all this stuff. And now she just sees this person in a bed, and it depresses her beyond anything. And she's 15 years old, man. So Applegate and her daughter make the most of the moments they're able to share together, such as morning drives with the Beatles, The Cure, or Marcy playground blasting. When she gets home from school or whatever, we hang out, we talk, and we laugh, and it's the best. She's my dedication to life, man.
You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, March the 5th, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, please call 716-821-5555. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
Just a quick last-minute news edition that just broke within the last few minutes. It is being reported that Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem has been relieved of her duties as Secretary. It is also reported that Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen is being eyed as the replacement in that role. The story is still developing. We'll have more tomorrow as it develops. But it just broke within the last few minutes. Wanted to share. Thank you. If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another